right. Hello and welcome aboard another episode of the Gallant Says podcast. It is October 29th, 2023. We are live streaming this at youtube.com/Paul Gallant and twitch.tv/Gallant Says. You can catch the show on a nightly basis, Sunday through Thursdays. It's also available wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. If you ever have a question, gallantsays@gmail.com. You can send an email there or follow me on a variety of different social media platforms. The Carolina Panthers beat the Houston Texans 15-13 today. And as your boy watched this game under several blankets after dressing up as Batman last night for Halloween, very hungover, this was as Texans as it gets to add to that hangover. And I'm not mad. I don't think the sky is falling. But if you listen to me on the radio on Friday, not to pat myself on the back, I would never do that. But I said two things. There's only two things that the Houston Texans could potentially do on Sunday. It's either disappoint us or take care of business to a collective shrug. You're going up against a team that's 0-6, even if they have Bryce Young, that you should beat. And you go into this game and you lose. A lot like the loss to the Atlanta Falcons. This is just who they are. And it sucks. It's a shame that the new faces on the Houston Texans are cursed to wear the same uniform as the other guys who were a part of the big old mid sandwich the last couple of years. Especially on a day where the Titans brought out their Oiler unis and balled with a rookie quarterback. Will Levis threw 4 touchdown passes. He looked better than both Bryce Young and CJ Stroud today, at least based off of the highlights that I saw. And also they did it against the team that you lost to. This is a new era. They're heading in the right direction. I still feel that way. But you are totally validated today. If you didn't even watch the game, if you don't feel that interested in the Texans, shrugging at this one and saying, same old Texans. It did feel at a moment in this game like they were going to run away with it. There was a 17-play, 92-yard touchdown drive for them to take a 7-0 lead. It ends the first quarter. I mean, it was a great drive. And Carolina punched back a bit. They had a drive to the Texans, one that got stopped. The next drive, after CJ Stroud got sacked on a 3rd and 7, they did score a touchdown, but they missed the extra point. You're looking at this Panthers team, and you're like, okay, this might be a little bit more difficult, but the Texans should ultimately win that. But the Panthers kept scoring. First drive out of halftime, they kicked a field goal. They take a 9-7 lead. Texans fumbled 2 plays later. Andrew Beck, they kick another field goal. They could have gone for it there, too. I mean, this could have been worse. Say the Texans didn't stop the Panthers at the goal line, and say the Panthers actually went for it here. But they kick a field goal on that 4th and 2. It's 12-7. And you're like, oh, Jesus. Oh, we're going to be holding on to our ass until the very end of this. But the Texans answered with a touchdown. They took a 13-12 lead because they had the balls to go for it on 4th and goal from the 1. I think everyone was happy with D'Amico Ryans there. And while they didn't get the 2-point conversion, you're thinking to yourself, all right, you just got to get one more drive. And don't make a mistake. And the defense helped them out here. The defense forced 2 3-and-outs. They got 3 sacks on those 3-and-outs. And after a great Tank Dell punt return, they had the ball at their own 48. Get a field goal, get a touchdown. And that's where this whole thing fucked up. It's 3rd and 5 at Carolina's 35. And the Texans got called for a delay of game penalty. As far as I'm concerned, delay of games are always on the quarterback. When I was in Seattle covering the Seahawks, people would constantly get on Pete Carroll's ass for the amount of random delay of games that the Seahawks had. And I always thought that was a Russell Wilson thing. The quarterback is the guy on the field who can get the team up to the line of scrimmage. And I understand there's communication with coaches on the sidelines, offensive coordinators in your headset, but it's 3rd and 5. You got to be the one to get the team to the line of scrimmage. They get called for that delay of game. So now all of a sudden it's 3rd and 10 from the Panthers 40. And there's an incomplete pass to Tank Dell. And next thing you know, it's 4th and 10. And that moment right there could have been a field goal or a conversion. Instead, the Texans punted. I do wonder, because this is now the 2nd straight year, I wonder how well the Texans know their own kicker. Ka'imi Fairbairn's been here a while. He has a career long of 61 yards. 61 yards. Did they forget that he's capable of kicking a long-range field goal? He's 24 of 35 in his career with a long of 61 and 21. And he had a long of 56 last year, which makes me think about that week 1 game against the Colts where they had a chance for a long field goal and Lovie Smith decided to punt. Don't be conservative with your field goal kickers. If you got a guy that's got the range, try to score points in a game where points were at a premium. You were in range. But that 3rd and 5 delay of game to a 3rd and 10, I think that's where the Texans lost it. Carolina iced the game with a 15-play, 86-yard field goal drive afterwards. Let's see some comments here. Twitch.tv/Kalan says, my kitchen is dirty, says Paul, stop shaving. I dressed up as Batman last night. You can't be Batman with a beard. Also, sorry, I can't deal with the whites. I can't deal. Oh, that sounds racist. I can't deal with the grays in my beard. I can't. Can't do it. Jeremiah Chavez comments at youtube.com/Paul Gallant. Thanks for the donation, buddy. I don't want to Chase Young or Montez Sweat at the deadline. I want a goddamn left guard. Put Howard back at the right tackle. Yeah, Howard is not good at pull blocking. He does not look good as a guard. But unfortunately, now that it looks like Jarrett Patterson, who got carted off, is going to be done for the year with an ankle injury or something, now, I mean, you kind of just have to roll with the way that you're rolling with this offensive line. But the offensive line sucked today. Stroud got sacked twice. There are a couple of runs that the Texans had where I don't know how the running backs were able to get any yards. Dameon Pierce, that's why you keep going back to Dameon Pierce, because he is so talented, even if he's maybe not the best scheme fit for what Bobby Slowick's trying to do on the ground. But there were multiple times where running backs had nowhere to run because of the offensive line in front of them. There was a illegal man downfield call on Shaq Mason. It wasn't a good day for the Texans offensive line. It wasn't a good day for the Texans as a whole, obviously, too. 7 penalties for 70 yards. Check that. 10 penalties for 70 yards on the game, too. Like, you can't shoot yourself in the foot like that. You can't. Twitch.tv/Gallant says, at least we can look forward to the Rockets, says my kitchen is dirty. Well, I didn't watch the game on Friday, but I heard a lot of people were frustrated with it. Going up against Victor Wembanyama, I guess at least Jalen Green looked a little bit better than he did in the first game of the season. Whatever. Yeah, I don't know. Are we going to be a Dynamo show right now? And I mean, I'm looking at the numbers that we have right now. There's 15 people watching on YouTube and on Twitch, and we might move this to more platforms to try to get some more people in. But you can see the collective apathy in Houston right now. Like, when they lose a game like this, there are some people online, the diehards, who are acting like the sky is falling here, but there are others who are like, whatever. I mean, this is who they are. Waka Flocka Bucks, twitch.tv/Gallant asks, why are we constantly running on 2nd and long? I don't know what Bobby Slowick's mentality is in situations like that. I do think it's a good point that when you find yourself in a second and long, you probably want to pass. He seems to constantly be overcorrecting Slowick. And we've heard him talk before this year, talking about how he wants the team to be more balanced on offense when the strength of this offense is the passing game, although it hasn't been, at least statistically, the last couple of games. I think he overcorrects, and I think that they wanted to make sure that they ran the football a lot, almost for the point of establishing the run, which I know drives a lot of the analytically geared people online fucking crazy. That's how a lot of the old school coaches look at the running game, like just run, run, run to establish it. It does help the offensive line out a bit. You do want to have them going forward, not always be dropping back. So from a perspective like that, it helps. And I know Bill O'Brien got a lot of shit. Bill O'Brien's mentality with the running game, it actually does make sense, even if some of the younger people aren't a big fan of it. When you do run the football over the course of a game, it is like a battering ram. You know, you're going to wear out the defensive line. You're going to wear out the linebackers. But, yeah, when you're in a second and long situation, and with the offensive line the way that it is right now, you're not going to be getting out of those holes very often. More comments, youtube.com/Paul Gallant. John D says, so sad. First the Astros, now this. For fuck's sake. Yep. Hackashack comments, at what point do we stop trying to establish a run game and start trying to win with what we do well? Well, let's talk about C.J. Stroud today. He wasn't bad, but 16 of 24 for 140 yards is pretty mid. 5.8 yards per attempt. And maybe this was a game where Stroud really missed Robert Woods, but his biggest completion came on that deflected pass to Noah Brown where he stepped out of bounds and stepped back in bounds, and luckily that deflection happened. 31 yards. The rest of the game, I mean, it's 15 of 23 for 109 yards. Like, that's Brock fucking Osweiler numbers. By the way, did you see that Brock Osweiler was on the call for the Rice-Tulane game this weekend? That made me laugh. I wish him the best, but God, that was a rough time in Texans history, the Osweiler era. Stroud had a couple of passes deflected, too, knocked down at the line. Frankie Louvu, the Panthers middle linebacker, that guy's fucking good. He had a sack. He had 2 tackles for a loss. He was looking like J.J. Watt back there as well. And to take a look at the strength of the Texans offense, hey, Stroud didn't make any mistakes, but this is one of those games where, as I kind of brought up in a YouTube video I posted, I believe on Friday, you do kind of feel like Stroud has maybe hit a rookie wall and that this offense has kind of hit some sort of obstacle that it can't quite overcome. So what do you do? And specifically, if you're Bobby Slowick, who, remember Larry Tunsil, I guess, on the NFL Network, described as a genius. Okay, let's pump the brakes here. Tank Dell only had the ball 6 times in this game. He's clearly your most electric player. That punt return he had was great. That spin move after the juke inside that he had on that speed sweep, also just a brilliant play. You got to find the way to get him the ball more, and 6 touches is unacceptable. Now, you can't force it all the time, and there are certain situations where if you're in a long yards to gain situation where you're probably not going to be able to use Dell all over the field or where he's at his best, which is like in the flats and on those short plays. But you still got to find a way to get him the ball. And the Texans offense wasn't able to do that. It's really been funny, just the ups and downs with Bobby Slowick. I saw a bunch of people that were commenting online like, oh, yeah, please, don't take Bobby Slowick away from us. He was a terrible offensive coordinator. People were saying that sarcastically. Like, oh, yeah, he's fucking awful. Like, oh, man, like, I really hope somebody else hires him. Like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Because there was a lot of compliments about Slowick. And I don't think he's bad. I don't think people should be freaking out about him. But you got to figure out a way to get the ball to your best players more often. And you got to find a way to make this, I guess, running game better. Although, what can you really do with that offensive line? Some more comments here. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant. Kevin Mitchell, no doubt. Same old Texans. We suck. Skeeter 2 times says fucking Texans. James, who I believe is a Panthers fan, says keep pounding. Good game, Texans. We don't think it was a good game, James. We don't fucking think that. We're mad if we care. Or we're just apathetic and shrugging and saying same old Texans. Because it was a very classic Texans loss. Yeah, Hackashack is bringing up exactly what I just said. Remember when we were afraid we might lose Bobby Sloak to a head coaching position? He's been dookie. I don't think he's dookie. He's just an offensive coordinator. He's better than Pep Hamilton. That's for fucking sure. Why Big Jordan says Sloak is good. People are ungrateful. He's not bad. Gray Line brings up that they're inconsistent. They want to run the football too much. My Kitchen is Dirty says, hey, are you and Biased Houston still beefing? That's a Rockets account. No, I just can't with the Rockets online people. I think they're fucking crazy. I just think they're way too positive about everything. It's not really beef. It just annoys me that he pops up on my timeline as much with like posts like Kevin Porter Jr. is the greatest point guard we've ever seen. Man, do we need to start thinking about a nickname for Tari Eason? Or some of those other guys, like at the back of the bench. Is it Josh Christopher season? Just, it's insane, positive bubblegum bullshit. And I'm sorry, I'm too cynical for that. What else do we have to discuss here? Bryce Young has clearly improved. I want to give Young credit. I still think if I had to pick between CJ Stroud on the Texans and Bryce Young, I would take Stroud mainly because of the size, and especially with the way the Texans' offensive line is right now. Stroud's getting killed out there, though. And to his credit, I thought he toughed it out. I think he's getting more and more used to just the weekly pounding that you get in the NFL. He made good throws. He extended plays despite getting sacked 6 times. Adam Thielen, pretty good wide receiver. It's not like he's working with nobody there, but he had a good game, and he played better than CJ Stroud. And it sucks that today, Will Levis and Bryce Young both looked better than CJ Stroud, and Levis is doing it in a fucking Houston Oilers uniform. Ugh. Absolutely annoying. Who's this loss on? Is my question. I know a lot of people are going to point at Bobby Slowick. I will not point at the defense. I thought the defense had a good game. I mean, you held a team to 15 points. You stopped them at the 1-yard line. 6 sacks, 9 tackles for a loss. Jonathan Grenard had 2.5 sacks. Malik Collins 2. Blake Cashman 1. Denzel Perryman 1. You held Carolina to 24 carries for 44 yards. Blake Cashman and Denzel Perryman were really all over the place. I thought the defense did its job today. Unfortunately, the offense wasn't able to do enough. And I mean, the highlight of the game is probably that. How long was that punt by Cam Johnston? What was it? It was an insane punt. 74-yard punt. I saw a post on the Houston Texans Instagram account, and it was like, wow, we just set the record for longest punt in franchise history. You can just imagine the person who posted that, the Texan social media person, just like crossing their arms and be like, yeah, we just had the longest punt ever. 74 yards. Yeah. It's one of those things where it was a great punt. It's not going to age well just because people are dicks. And when you lose, people are just going to jump all over that and crucify the poor fucker who put that up. More comments. YouTube.com/Paul Gallant. Hackashack says, D'Amico needs to learn you cannot play soft prevent defense at the end of the game when you are up by less than 3. Well, here's the thing. Were you expecting the drive to take as long as it did? Because it was a long drive for the Panthers to wrap things up. 15 plays, 86 yards. What the hell is that? Instant autoplay on some of these websites is really annoying. 15 plays, 85 yards. it was the right move. And they did have the Panthers in a 4th and 2 situation right before the 2-minute warning. And the Panthers got the first down there. So I don't think that this is because the defense was playing prevent. Like, there was still half a quarter left. And they said, all right, we're not going to let Bryce Young beat us over the top. But you got to get a stop at some point. And I really feel more than anything that the Texans offense let the Texans defense down. This is not a loss that you pin on the defense. They had 6 sacks, 9 tackles for a loss. And seriously, 22 carries for less than 50 yards for the Panthers. That's a really good effort by the defense. I thought Malik Collins played well. The Texans played well, I thought, defensively. There were some bad penalties. And the offense just is in a funk. It's been this way since before the bye week. It was like that against the Saints. Things have been coming very difficult for them in these last 3 games against the Panthers, the Saints, and the Falcons. It's 3 games in a row of this. We haven't seen that next step from C.J. Stroud. He did have an awesome throw right before their first touchdown in a very tight window. But the NFL is all about adjustments. And now that you have essentially a month straight of this offense being unable to do what it did against Jacksonville and Pittsburgh, you got to go back to the drawing board. Hack-a-Shack. How about the delay of game? First time in decades of watching football that I've seen a ref blow the whistle the instant the clock hits 0. I mean, it should be that way. I'm not going to get mad at the referees there. And if you're tuning in late, I think that was on C.J. Stroud. You got to have the team up at the line of scrimmage, man. It's a 3rd and 5. And you're in field goal range. And it goes from 3rd and 5 to 3rd and 10, and you don't get the 3rd and 10. And the next thing you know, you're not even trying to kick a field goal. You're punting the ball back to Carolina. That's where they lost it. That specific moment right there. And yeah, I'm wondering if, in retrospect, D'Amico Ryans regrets not kicking a field goal there. Kaimi Fairbairn has hit a 61-yard field goal. If you get that field goal, you get those 3 points because you weren't able to get the 2-point conversion. They can't beat you with the field goal. They would have had to score a touchdown there. And honestly, given that you had stopped them in the red zone before, there's a chance you win. There was a chance that you win there. Julio Ruiz says the Texans made me sick today. Yeah, I'm not even mad. As I've said before, I'm just disappointed. I feel like a parent. It was a very same old Texans kind of loss. You think that they're taking strides this year, and it's a golden opportunity against a winless team coming off the bye week, and you could potentially be above 500 for the first time this season and the first time in a while, and you lose this game. And look, Carolina played well enough, but they're a winless team for a reason. And right now, you still really can't say the Texans should win any game. I said that on Friday. I don't like being right. I know a lot of people think that we in sports media, we like it when we end up right with some sort of a prediction or thought. No, I fucking hate it. I would much rather enjoy myself watching the game than to be correct all the time. Even though the latter would help me out a lot, I like being wrong. Because if I'm wrong, that means that good things have probably happened. But being skeptical and cynical lends itself to, I think, the level of apathy that this whole city has for the Houston Texans. I'm not the only one that feels that way. My kitchen is dirty. Twitch.tv/Gallant says, what's your opinion on the Tavier Thomas end of game penalty? Is that a new rule, the unsportsmanlike? I think if you... That was something I had never seen described that way. I think perhaps because he had done it 2 plays in a row, they don't want teams to just do this every single field goal attempt. But honestly, it was the right move, right? You should just keep doing it. Eventually, you're going to get off on time. Pretty crazy that the second time he actually didn't even hit the ball when he tried to run through it. But no, I'm surprised by that rule that was new, where they called it unsportsmanlike conduct. But if you do it over and over again, it is kind of unsportsmanlike conduct, right? If you're just ignoring the snap because you realize like this play for the game. So you go all out. You want to block that field goal. It's an easy kick, though, after the unsportsmanlike conduct. I have no problem with what he did. You got to win somehow. Julio Ruiz, could we pull off a trade to help our interior defense create havoc when it really matters down the stretch? Here's the thing. You're not making any trades for this year. Number one, because you don't have enough salary cap space to bring in somebody. I think the Texans are working with like $3 million. It's going to be hard for them to bring in somebody. And think about it from this perspective as well. Do you want to give up assets for a rental or something like that? Yeah, you have an opportunity to win the division here, and I think a lot of people want to win now. But at the same time, I think the Texans are realizing, hey, like, anything that we get this year is found money. You know? If this team does well, great. But this team, I think, knows that realistically there's still more things that they have to add. It's a shame, though, that the most expensive part of the team, the offensive line, has been what it's been this year, which has just been a net negative. And I know there's been injuries and all that, so certainly some excuses to be made. I mean, Titus Howard's playing left guard, but it was a rough day, I thought, for the offensive line. Shaq Mason, man, illegal man downfield on a fucking what ended up being like a 25-yard gain or something like that. Man, that one's bad. That should never happen. Just a brain fart there. On the bright side, says Hackashack, Anderson did get a half sack on a play that didn't count. I'm not going to stand for Will Anderson slander. I think he's been good. I think that we put too much on numbers. And I think the big problem for Anderson is that since the Texans traded as much as they did to go and get him, much like when Jadeveon Clowney was the first overall pick, he is going to be held to an unfair standard because of that. But I think he's been good. I just don't think he was very good today. And the big problem is when you don't have a lot of other good defenders around him, they can focus on him. Now, today, and I got to go back and watch the line play, but I mean, Jonathan Grenard took advantage. The pass rush was good today. I don't think it's worth it to get frustrated that Will Anderson is once again sackless on the stat sheet. I can understand getting more and more frustrated with the lack of production out there, but I think he's been good, and I think you got to be careful when you're using sacks to determine whether or not a pass rusher is making things happen. Julio Ruiz, why don't the Texans try passing to the running back since the running game is non-existent? I mean, look, by definition, they did enough today. By definition, when you are averaging over 3.3 yards a carry, that means if you're handing the ball off 3 times in a row, you're going to get a first down. A lot of coaches are going to take that every single time. 30 carries, 110 yards, a 3.7 yards per carry average. It's not bad, but it's definitely not what you want. And everything's just hard behind that offensive line, which I think is right now the biggest part of this team's struggles. And it's one of the reasons where I'm not like freaking out or anything like that. I know some of you guys are pissed, and I don't blame you. But it's more because you're trying to get reinvested in this team, and this happens. And you're like, yep, I'm so used to this. You want it to be different. It's not the players' fault that they share the same uniforms as the teams that have played the last couple of years. Robert McCrory says, can we please get a good tight end? Dalton Schultz did have that one catch and run upfield. Stroud rolled to his right, threw it back to his left. It was kind of a crazy play by both Stroud and Schultz, who ran laterally for as many yards as he did. I don't know that the lack of a tight end is the issue here. And I mean, you signed Schultz to a 1-year, $6 million contract or so. So you sort of understand what you're getting here. No, Robert Woods did seem to hurt. But I don't know that a better tight end is going to help the passing game out. I do think better receivers would help. I do think a better offensive line would help. But not the best day at the office for C.J. Stroud, that's for sure. Anyway, guys, I appreciate y'all for tuning in. It's the same old Texans. You know, what else can I really say? If you want to continue to watch this show, please either like and subscribe the video on youtube.com/PaulGallant, or same thing, twitch.tv/GallantSays. We do this Sunday through Thursday nights. Mondays and Thursdays, we're going to do it after Monday and Thursday night football. Tuesdays and Wednesdays, we're going to shoot for 6 o'clock. Probably going to shoot for 6 o'clock going forward as well to do the recap videos for these Texans games here. But I appreciate y'all for tuning in. It'll be available in podcast form in about an hour or so. Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. And if you ever have a question, galantsays@gmail.com. Texans lose to the Panthers 15-13. They're 3-4. Blah. So long. Farewell. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of